I was recently in a retro video game store when I overheard some other guy come in and try to sell a bunch of old toys and games. The guy working behind the counter sounded really interested to buy the video games, but said he probably couldn't take the VHS movies or the DVDs or the Blu-rays even, just because they already have too much of that stuff in stock in the store. The guy who was trying to sell all of his stuff was pretty boisterous and just kept proclaiming that it didn't matter if he didn't sell it, he would just throw it in the trash if nobody wanted it. He'd just throw it in the trash if nobody wanted it. So as he was on the way out, he was saying with all the movies, he would just throw them in the trash, and that's when I stepped up. So I stepped up and I said, hey, I collect VHS tape, so at the very least, give them to me if you're just gonna throw them all away. And he said, sure, come on out to my car. So nothing like meeting a stranger in a parking lot to get stuff out of the back of their car. But here is what he had to give me. So I've already gone through and sort of sorted through some of this stuff, but here's a pretty good VHS haul that I'm going to be keeping. There's a mixture of all different formats. So there was VHS, there were Blu-rays, there were DVDs, a mixture of TV shows and movies. There's a whole box of anime, which I'm not familiar with. I've heard of Dragon Ball Z before, but some of the other stuff, just kind of clueless. So I will be posting some of this stuff on eBay to try to get rid of. A huge collection of DVD movies, a huge collection of DVD movies, and a bunch of series such as the show Las Vegas, which I've never heard of, Lost and Scrubs, and some original South Park DVDs, which are pretty cool. And then I put together this box of stuff that I don't really have an interest in keeping, so I'm going to try to get rid of just movies that, you know, didn't really resonate with me, or even though I love 13th Warrior, you know, as far as my rules when collecting VHS tapes are, is like pretty much nothing after 1995. Like if I first watched 13 Warrior on DVD and not VHS, I won't add it as a VHS collection. This was a DVD movie for me, in my opinion, for my timeline in life. So in addition to all those VHS tapes and DVDs that I got for free, over Memorial Day weekend, I did end up finding both of these CRT TVs in separate alleyways in Ocean Beach, California. They were pretty dirty, and I've already wiped them down to try to clean them up a bit, but it looks like they might still be functional. So the Mitsubishi on the left is a 27-inch TV from 1991, and the RCA on the right is a 26-inch TV from 2001. So these TVs are about 10 years apart in age. Here you can see the Mitsubishi TV with its model number. Here it is stamped January 1991. And here's the RCA with its model number. This one is stamped manufacture date June 2001. Now, I don't know if either of these TVs work. They were both found in alleyways, and when I found them, as you can see, the cords have been cut off of both of these. Now, I don't know if either of these two TVs work. As you can see, they're both missing their plugs, their wires on the back. Looks like somebody probably came down the alley and just snipped the cables off to try to take the copper wire for recycling purposes. So the next step on these is going to be trying to, you know, wire these up, plug them in, check them out, see if they're functional, see if they're worth keeping or reselling, and also we'll throw some test patterns on there to check out what the geometry looks like if they do turn on. right, so this is the Mitsubishi from 1991 that I have open right now. Aside from years of dust settled all over the back of the tube, nothing really looks to be broken or really wrong with it. You did see me just discharge the tube there. Please do not try that at home. Do not replicate what I did. I've done it a couple of times on my own and I feel confident I can do that, but please do not attempt to do that. It can be very dangerous and you can get electrocuted and you can die, so don't. Now here's where the power wires come out of the back of the TV. So I am going to need to remove this panel to get in there to extend them a bit. You can see the back of this TV has 2 composite inputs for video and audio and 1 composite output. It also has a S-video input, which is pretty cool. And you can also attach external speakers here, which is also nice. This unit has built-in speakers, which look a little worse for wear on the sides here. So that could be a good option if this tube and TV turn out to be functional. You know, somebody threw this away for a reason. So once we get this powered on, we'll find out why. All right, now that power cable is soldered up, let's kill the lights and plug this thing in and see if we can get it to turn on. It's powering on. And we've got a signal. We've also got some flashing display and some really distorted geometry. The flickering is because I can't sync my cell phone camera with the TV screen, so you'll see it phase in and out of sync, but the picture's not rolling like it is. Well, even without the rolling, you can see the extreme geometry distortion on the side of the frame here. We shouldn't be seeing black there or on the right side of screen either. So let me get something hooked up to this so we can put on a test pattern and see if we can actually display anything through the inputs. Okay, so I do now have this hooked up to a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, and the output signal from the Raspberry Pi is composite, and that's going into one of the inputs on the back of the TV currently. So let me switch the input signal and see if we can get something to show up on screen. Well, there we go. We've got a bit of a signal. Let's load up something we know what it looks like. Wow. So far, no sound, but we're getting some really fun picture effects. Try to turn the volume up. So I am only getting sound out of the left speaker. Let's see what happens with a little bit of gameplay. Oh wow, the picture's jumping all around. That is crazy. Ooh, it's making me dizzy. Great job. Okay, so I'm throwing up a geometry grid on the screen right now in the 240p test suite. couple of controls for focus and brightness, manual knobs on the back of the TV that I'm adjusting now, but it still looks pretty bad, and I'm not sure what's wrong with this one. I think this one might be a little too far gone for me. It's a really old TV. It probably needs all its capacitors recapped, and I don't think I'd have the time or the energy to restore this TV. Probably better off, you know, finding one that's in better shape, which I might have down here since I have two of them. So I'm going to turn my attention to this RCA next and see if we can get this one working as well. All right, well, right away, this RCA looks in much better condition. I mean, just the amount of wear and dust that's on this thing. It's not nearly as bad as the Mitsubishi. So I'm gonna get this thing cleaned up a little bit. I'm gonna discharge the tube again like I did before, and gonna get a power cord soldered onto the end here. Got the RCA wired up and hooked up to the Raspberry Pi, so let's turn it on and see what happens. So the picture actually looks pretty decent on the RCA, but as you can tell, there's some really bad static sort of arcing sound happening from the back. Picture looks relatively stable and the geometry is not terrible. Let's see if it has any sound. Alrighty, so it turns out the color and picture are not actually that bad. Looks like maybe the overscan settings in the Raspberry Pi need to be adjusted, but otherwise this is looking pretty good and sounding pretty good as well. The crackling sound coming from the back, whatever arcing was happening, is still happening, but it's pretty subdued. Kind of sounds like when you first turn on a TV and there's a lot of static electricity going on. So the picture is actually pretty good, and once it's warmed up a bit, that static sound, that arcing has kind of gone away. It's a little intermittent, but it's not sounding too bad like it did when I first powered it on. This thing probably hadn't been maybe turned on in a couple of months or maybe even a couple of years. It was just sitting in an alleyway. So this one looks pretty usable. I may keep this around to maybe play some VHS on or play a couple of retro games from time to time.